Sheriff.
Good morning, everyone.
I don't think so.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Mayor.
Is it on TV
Oh,
or
yes,
just
we will be.
the website?
I think it's gonna be on TV.
Mark, are we all ready to go?
We do have a quorum. We have Mayor Adams, Mayor Pro Tem Boffo, Councilmember Wolfley, and his staff present. That's all I see right now.
All in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh.
Madam Clerk, City Clerk, have you heard from any of the others as to whether or not?
Everybody had confirmed that they were going to be on virtually.
Now that I checked my
The
inbox.
only one I hadn't had confirmation was from Councilmember Wolfley, and he's there. And here's Ingrid now.
Okay, just to let you all know, we just went live.
It's not many.
Ready to go.
Okay, so we're ready to go live now?
We are.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning to our special session we're having today. It is Saturday, January 23rd, 2021, and it is now 11:01, and we will get started. At this point, I think I'd like to just turn it over to our city staff to give us some briefing. Our first item we will be looking at is how we move forward with the Bowie Golf Course.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, how are you? City Council. You know, I prepared some documents and I'm going to ask Nick to go through the first document in a moment. And after that, it'll be up to you all for discussion and determination.
Understood.
On the Bowie Golf Course, what I am going to propose in the near future is that within a few months of the expiration of the current contract, that we put out a request for proposal for another contractor to take over and run the golf course, and put stipulations in the RFP that contractor should be prepared to make investments and like the other contractor was supposed to do, and then and be able to run the operation and take the profits associated with it if there are any. And then we would continue to make the $250,000 annual investment that we have been doing. And then see what happens if we get any takers. We may get an entrepreneur who wants to take over the golf course and move forward, and that would be one less operation for us to run, which is what it had been, and that is probably most likely what I will be proposing that we do as we approach the end of the current contract. I'd like to hand it over to Nick right now and have him go through the document I presented, which talks about options and revenues and potential revenues for the golf course. Nick, are you out there?
I think you're on mute, Nick.
I am. Thank you, sir. Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council. What I'd like to go through briefly here is a staff proposal should the city need to engage in operating the golf course come October 1st. So the city staff has produced a budget in anticipation of that potential endeavor. So I'm going to jump right into it. Feel free to ask any questions along the way. First, I'd like to go into the operating costs. Operating costs are estimated at $1,357,000 for FY22 based on a full year of operation. Because we would be engaging in this endeavor not July 1, but rather later in the fiscal year, the actual cost would be less. We wouldn't be hiring all the staff necessarily July 1. We would be hiring perhaps the golf course manager in anticipation of hiring all the other staff and making the right decisions. But we would not see that full $1.3 million expenditure. So in revenue, we estimate that staff projects a conservative revenue of about $1.4 million, and that is based on 30,000 rounds of golf. We have proposed a fee structure. The fees that we have proposed represent an increased cost to play golf at Bowie Golf Course, placing the round fees for non-residents at a similar rate as charged by the commission, Park and Planning Commission, at their local golf clubs. In essence, non-residents would have to pay the market rate for our region in order to play golf in Bowie. Our proposal also provides for a 20% discount on most of those rates and memberships for Bowie residents. So we have the baseline being basically what Park and Planning Commission charges. All non-residents would be charged that rate. And ultimately, we would be providing a 20% discount, so we would have a reduced rate for our Bowie residents. Net profit, we estimate that it's basically a break even. I have provided a number that's $42,000 worth of revenue, and have provided a revenue worksheet. There's a lot of variables in there. Do we have a sunny year? Do we do 35,000 rounds of golf versus 30,000 rounds of golf? Is it a rainy year? So, I think the takeaway there is that we're able to project close to a break-even operation. And there could be additional profits or there could be slight losses, but it's about a break-even operation. In regards to equipment and golf courses, golf carts, we'd be lifting this off, this operation. We don't have that equipment right now. So it's important to recognize that we'd have to go and procure some equipment, some grounds equipment and golf carts. Estimates for ground maintenance equipment is between $403,000 and $617,000. Savings can be achieved by purchasing some select items used. That conversation, we've had a detailed conversation with our Parks and Grounds Superintendent, Ed Hall, who's on this call, and he has shared with us where it would make most fiscal sense to buy used equipment versus new equipment. And he's a great expert, has great expertise in this field. A full cost estimate and replacement forecasting schedule has been attached. And so we've also looked at golf carts, how many golf carts we would need to operate the golf course. Right now they have a fleet over at the Bowie Golf Course of about 70 golf carts. So a fleet of golf carts utilizing a procurement purchasing cooperative agreement would be around $400,000. I have $395,000 listed, but it's approximately $400,000. These carts have a minimum life expectancy of 10 years. When maintained properly, they should last longer than that. But that annualizes that cost center to about $40,000 per year. So getting into the capital improvements, and there's some significant capital improvements that I've highlighted in the documentation here. I'm going to go through 3 different scenarios that call for a self-managed city-operated facility, and then a 4th option which talks about having an independent operator. one that our city manager just referenced. So option one, and none of these are in any order from a staff perspective. You know, it really is up to council here to guide us in this process. But option one, as we've outlined, is a city managed with minimal improvement opportunity. The estimated total improvement cost for option one is the smallest that we're listing for all the city managed, and that's at $5.3 million. Those renovations include a replacement of the irrigation system, greens drainage, clubhouse repairs, and we'll get back to that in just a second, cart path renovation, pump station renovation, driving range improvements, and other ancillary necessary improvements. The reason why I mentioned clubhouse repairs is the significant difference in cost between option one and option three, which we'll get to in a minute, is the fact that we would just be repairing the Fair Runnings house, the current clubhouse, in this proposal, in this option. The option three, which is the McDonald Sons, calls for a brand new, $6 or $7 million brand new clubhouse. So I'm going to jump to option two now. Option two is a city managed with a moderate improvement. The estimated cost is $7.5 million. That is between FY22 and 26. Renovations include irrigation system replacement, green drainage, clubhouse repairs, significant ground renovation, pump station renovation, and other ancillary improvements. This step does exclude enhancements to the driving range. So it is in lieu of doing more significant grounds maintenance to holes. Option three, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is essentially following the McDonald and Son recommendation, their proposal that they've presented to City Council. This represents the maximum improvement to the facility and course. It has an estimated total improvement of $12.6 million between FY22 and 26. This is the most impactful improvement: constructing a new clubhouse, moving some golf greens, making significant improvements and modifications to the course. So this is not a small endeavor. This is a very large endeavor. It's a beautiful, beautiful plan that the McDonald Sons folks, put forth. It just has a significant cost tag, price tag to it. Option four is the least option. Staff looking at the determining the capital improvements that are absolutely necessary versus the ones that are nice to do. We've looked at that and looked at what would be reasonable for us to help to make the golf course more attractive to operators. We've determined what we feel that cost center and what that would look like. We have an estimated total improvement cost of $4.5 million between FY22 and 26. Renovations includes irrigation system replacement, green drainage, clubhouse repairs, pump station renovation, and other ancillary necessary improvements. It's also important to realize too, with this least option is we could very well follow the city manager's recommendation, as he highlighted just a few minutes ago, and put more ownership responsibilities, more fiscal responsibility on an operator, and they need to put a little bit more in the game here, and so that would certainly reduce the capital program for the city if we followed that path that, as the city manager has highlighted.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, sir.
Okay, if I ask you a couple of quick questions before you move a little further.
Yes, sir.
All right. The first one is I was just curious, how much is the actual increase when you take into consideration the new fees and the discount, the 20% discount that you were initially talking about for Bowie residents?
Right.
Is that still an increase per round for the local residents?
It is. Yes, sir. Yeah, there is still an increase to the per round fee for Bowie residents. It appears that I mean, that it's quite subjective, but I believe that it is not a significant increase for Bowie residents. But yes, there is an increase. When we went through the McDonald and Sons program review about a year and a half ago, they indicated that we were significantly under the market rate in our area. So, I believe that there is room for growth in fee structure there. And so, yes, to be crystal clear here, there would be an increase for Bowie residents, even with a 20% discount. That increase is not significant. It is significant for non-residents, but I believe it is not significant for Bowie residents.
Okay. Another quick question on that is, I need to ask is, as you were looking at this, will this be an accessible course? I.e., when you were looking at the cost of the carts and all, will we have an accessible cart? For example, myself, I played golf and played golf.
Outstanding. We can absolutely look at that, and this budget would allow for us to look at all sorts of ADA accommodations, including carts.
Okay. Hey, thank you. I'll just want to get those quick. That helps me as we go along.
Sure.
Mayor, thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
We want to make sure we understand the lease option there. There are some things that just have to happen at that golf course. We have to get the irrigation system up to snuff because I think they're doing it manually. And the greens drainage is a big issue. And the clubhouse repair is also mandatory. So those are some things that we have to get fixed to provide a decent amenity. My position is that in the future, when we go out for an RFP, that we intend to request that the persons who take over would take on some of those responsibilities rather than lean it all with us, since they will get an opportunity to get the profits. Now, and I know we talked a lot about city management of this program, this course. We had a course in Georgia, and these courses don't pay for themselves. There's a bit of a glut of golf amenities in this area, and we have to know that. But the last option in my professional mind is for us to take it over ourselves. That's the last thing I would want to do, because that would, it would be unreasonable to expect that it's going to be an enterprise fund. Well, it would have to be taken over with the idea of providing an amenity and absorbing some of the costs likened to the gym and other facilities like that. And that's kind of all we have to say on that issue, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just ask really quickly a clarifying question? I couldn't really hear. Did you say take it over and absorb the cost, or take it over and sell it? Sorry, I didn't hear clearly.
What I was talking about was the city taking it over and managing the course as just like we do the gym.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Nick, I didn't mean to cut you short. If you were still presenting, please. My apologies.
No, that was the conclusion of my summary on the golf course operational budget. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I didn't, maybe this is my blindness. I didn't see how much like the salaries and wages would run us. Is that not here?
So that falls under the operating cost. I had identified the operating cost as an estimated $1.3 million for FY22. That does include, fuel, fertilizer for growing the grass, the staff cost. It is all inclusive. So that is the full operating cost. That does not include the capital expenditures. That is strictly the operating costs.
For the budget detail that you have in the packet, that's the stage that we're at in regards to our internal budget review. We're looking more from the operational expenditures, and we haven't developed that in a detailed portion yet, which is why you didn't have the detailed breakdown. So you have Nick's estimate in the overall cost of operation.
Okay, will we get the detailed breakdown, or will that come in April?
Well, wait a minute. If it's in fact the direct it becomes an issue that we're gonna take over this course, then we'll work out those details.
Okay.
But I'm not, just to make sure everybody understands how things are going. The budget that's gonna be presented is gonna be coming from me to you is what I think is the right thing to do. This may not be the recommendation in that budget. Now, you all have an option to change it and to direct us to take one course of action or another. And if that happens, then we'll drill as far as we have to go. Right now, before we do all that, before we don't take those kind of steps and do that kind of work, we need a clear direction of some sort of what you want to do with your golf course.
Completely understood. I was just asking because most of the time when it comes to making these bigger decisions that are pretty important, the breakdown is important to consider. So that's why I was asking, but thank you for clarifying.
I have a question.
At this point, I'd like to make sure if anybody has questions. I see Councilmember Harrison, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lott, my question is, and it might be a crazy question, but why wouldn't we consider renewing the current lease?
Well, we would be considering that, but we have to, because this is a public entity, we have to offer everybody an opportunity to compete for the contract and
Correct.
the contract. And if the current contractor wants to compete, they will have the option to submit a proposal to us, just like everybody else.
So ultimately, the existing contractor that we have, Bowie Golf Management, has already let us know that they are not continuing on with the contract. So the ownership structure of Bowie Golf Management today will not be operating the golf course beyond this lease. If a new ownership structure comes over and wants to acquire Bowie Golf Management, that is something that could happen. But today, Bowie Golf Management that we contract with today, as it stands, won't be in existence. So we have to entertain another option.
Okay, can I jump in with you there, Councilwoman, and just add, because I think this goes to what you're saying as well, and excuse me, how long are you looking at potentially doing, if we went for bid, the lease for the new course?
The term of the lease?
Years or what?
I don't think we've developed what that specific term would be. I think we have some flexibility on that. Being a local government, we are interested in things for the long term, so a long-term lease would certainly be desirable for us to consider, but we don't have a specific length anticipated for that term.
Councilwoman, again, my apologies. Please go right ahead.
Oh, no, I mean,
Well, I would help give a better answer to Councilman Harris's question. The current contractor is, and when I arrived, we're talking, being honest here, when I arrived, we were getting $7,000. Was that a month? Yeah, that was
A month.
$7,000 a month in a lease payment from this contractor. They demonstrated that they could not make the payments anymore. And also, it was apparent that this contractor had not done any of the infrastructure maintenance that was required by the contract before. So,
right. So did we follow up to find out why they didn't do that maintenance? Was it money? What was the issue?
yes, it was their management of their money and nobody really watching to see what they were doing over years.
So there was no oversight from the city to the golf course, to the management company?
Well, that one could draw that conclusion, but or there was we trusted them a lot. Let's put it like that. So we have to get a contractor to come in who has the capacity to sustain and maintain and do their part, and we have to develop a contract with the contractor where we can enforce their compliance with what they agree to do, if we can find it.
So we didn't have that before, Al, really?
No, it wasn't there. Not when I arrived. It was written in their favor, and And it was an old agreement, and I don't want to disparage anybody, but it just was not one that we had a lot of teeth in for us. So we had to, in order to keep the amenity, we had to forgive the $7,000 a month and start doing a bunch of maintenance ourselves over the last 4 years to keep the amenity going. And we want to avoid that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely hope so, because to me, looking at these other options, they're just not viable for us at this time. So to me, the only option really is to lease it. But I mean, I would like to really understand from the current lease owner, the management company, why they didn't make those changes. So, and what the oversight would be from us, you know, in a new contract if we decided to go with another contractor.
I mean, I think with the current staff that we have and expertise, you know, we could audit and monitor the golf course and its operations without a problem, and we do now. And that is how Nick and those guys know so much about the current operation. Actually, like this year was a good year for them. Especially, I think some couple of golf courses closed down and things got better. Now, one thing we need to understand that there might be more golf courses than there are people to play. That's just a real factor. The supply might be higher than the demand, and that's something we have to deal with. And we would have to determine, you all as policymakers, you know, do we want to provide this amenity and how much we want to put into it? My objective is to lease it and do as little as possible. But, you know, I do know there are some things that just have to be done to keep going. One of those things is the irrigation system.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and I think even over the past few months, there's been a increase in people coming to the golf course. From what I've been hearing, the numbers have increased, especially during the, I would say between April and October of last year. So I don't think we should think about getting rid of the amenity, certainly leasing it. But I'm not in favor of getting rid of it. But I do agree that we need to make some massive upgrades, or those upgrades need to happen, especially the irrigation system, like you said, and of course the repair to the clubhouse.
Councilwoman Harrison, can I jump in really quickly and ask a question on top of your question? Because I think you raised some really good points. Sure. I think, Mr. Lott, a lot of the points that you made were really sound in terms of the current lease owner. But what I'm curious about is, in the many times that I've, I guess, heard from them or they've emailed, their I guess you would say, side of the story tends to differ from ours. So I'm just trying to understand, what are the discrepancies there, and why are they not under the same impression as the city?
Right.
Quick question. What is their side of the story?
I think it would be nice if they could speak on that themselves. Is there a way to add them to this call? I think that would be better than having hearsay.
No.
Well, you know, it's you know.
I think I can adjust this a little bit. You all have not been hearing from the ownership of Bowie Golf Management. You are hearing from employees of Bowie Golf Management and the people that currently operate the golf course on a day-to-day basis. So there's two different stories in terms of what you're getting. Our relationship with Bowie Golf Management will be ceasing. That company does not exist for contract terms, as Mr. Lott had indicated. We have, prior to them letting us know that they would not be continuing on with it, we let them know that at the expiration of this contract term, we would be developing a new contract for whoever we entertain. The terms in the old contract need to be updated and revised. So I know people have reached out to you, have invited you out to the course. That is not the ownership of Bowie Golf Management that has been reaching out and talking to you. That is employees and staff that would like to continue on and continue to work and potentially be a new contractor for the city going out into the future. The relationship we have today, it just will not exist. There will be a different ownership with whoever we consider to contract with.
just for the record, under option 4, they still be able to bid, be
Absolutely.
a part of the process. I just wanted that to be.
Somebody, yeah, they can.
So-
We did a complete audit of the whole golf operation 4 years ago. Because the first real challenge I had as a city manager was when they met with me and told me they could no longer operate, and they couldn't, well, we can't afford to pay any money, we're not making any money. They did not have any resources. And oh, by the way, they informed me that they could not and had not maintained the clubhouse. That's why it's dilapidated, and the cart paths were in terrible shape. There were tree stumps all over. It was really bad. And they were looking at me, okay, Mr. Lott, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I realized that. I didn't realize the golf course was even a city entity. But I learned that day. I thought it was a private. But the evidence indicates that I went back to the council and presented the situation to the city council at the time. And the city council wanted to maintain the amenity. We gave them leeway on the rent. And we actually used our own people and monies to help upgrade the golf course. So it doesn't matter what anybody's telling me, saying, we know what the circumstances are.
I guess what doesn't, I mean, I understand that and that makes sense and I get it, but I guess that also doesn't answer the question, because what we're saying here today, and I don't want to take us in circles, but it's hard to, I guess you would say, fully, I mean, I guess we can make whatever decision we need to, but what the discrepancy is that I'm trying to highlight is whether they're employees, staff, owners, whatever you want to classify them as, the story is just very different on their side than it is on ours. And so what I'm trying to understand is, where is the discrepancy in that story and why is there a discrepancy? So if that means us having a meeting with them to understand, because I think that's important for us to understand, for us to be able to make the best decision in terms of where the discrepancies are, so we can learn from that as a council going forward, because we haven't always been included in that discussion because we weren't elected at those times. So I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, is the discrepancy and why there's a discrepancy, and where's the, like, what is the breakdown in that discrepancy as to why it's occurring that two different people have two different stories.
So can I jump in real quick?
What is
Mr. Mears? Do you mind if I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead, please, Councilman.
So it sounds like there's two things going on here that we might be debating. One is who was responsible for making the investments, the improvements to the course. And it sounds like our expectation was that the managers would make it, but it sounds like that's not what our agreement with them was, that it was an old agreement that was very favorable to them.
There was an agreement, and they were required to make the infrastructure. And we can prove that. It's just a signed document.
That's in the agreement,
And
that they were
there's
required
no
to make
discrepancy there at all.
Oh. So in our agreement with them, they were required to make
Yes.
the necessary improvements.
And they did.
That is in writing.
Yes.
Okay. Could we produce that document?
Yes.
Okay. Because I know I asked this.
Within those 4 years, we still didn't provide any oversight. I mean, I guess I don't understand that.
Yeah.
That seems to be one of the major points of disagreement here, is who's in charge. And my understanding was always that the lease agreement was just very favorable to them and didn't hold them to making any of the needed improvements.
Well,
I understand that.
you understand the history of things. They were supposed to maintain the clubhouse. They were supposed to maintain the irrigation system. They were supposed to do all of that.
Mm.
But they came to me in January of 2017 and said, look, we haven't done any of that, and we're about to go out of, we're in trouble, we're not making any money, and we can't pay the lease payment. And so, and after taking it back to the council wanted to maintain the amenity. We took a look at the situation, and all of those guys went out there. And that is why, over the last 4 years, we put at least $250,000 of our own money into the maintenance of the golf course, because it's our property. And the council wanted to keep it around. And anybody who says anything different, they're not telling the truth. It's as simple as that.
And so if I may, kind of add into kind of a, apologize.
Is that you, Councilman Wolfley?
Yes. I want to kind of try and take it a step back and go back to when this thing was originally acquired in 80 or 81 or whenever that was. There was a bond payment, there was a bond that was issued for that. And since that time period, this thing has been leased out for somebody else to run. Ultimately, the course was entirely paid for by the lease proceeds. So over that course of time, the way I see it is we have an enterprise, a business enterprise that made a sound business decision, knowing that they were not going to have the next lease, right? They decided that they were going to, quote, go out of business, retire, or whatever. And at that point in time, it makes no sense for them to make a capital improvement, even if they're obligated to do so. It makes no sense for them to make a capital improvement for an asset which they will no longer own and will no longer be able to get any revenue from. I would not go putting a new roof on a house that's going to be taken away from me in 2 years. I would put up with the leaks, and then when the house is taken from me, I'm out of there and I saved myself the big bucks on the new roof. So I think that is kind of, I think, the undercurrent for all of this, and it's kind of water under the bridge.
Right.
We're in a situation right now where we have an asset that provides value to the community in terms of service. It provides it in terms of an amenity for people to go out and enjoy themselves, green space, all that kind of stuff. And I think we kind of have to focus on how do we maximize, I don't want to say the return, but to minimize the cost for us while at the same time putting in place a decent amenity. And I think you're right. We've got to have these capital improvements. We've got to have the irrigation system. And I think that it makes sense to go and try and get a lease with somebody. To me, the big thing about the lease is something that the mayor brought up earlier is that, and that Al has also brought up, which is on the opposite side. So the first side is we want to provide an amenity to the community that is favorable to our residents. That is to say, I think we need to ensure that we have provisions in the lease that say you got to maintain a discount for our city residents, and that the fees are going to be consistent with a public amenity, consistent with what we have for a parks and park and planning type run golf course, so that we're not going to see our rates going through the roof, because then it no longer becomes an amenity that many of our constituents are either going to be willing to or feel cheated for having the city assets that they have to pay a premium price for. So I think we need to mind that. And at the same time, to Al's point, we need to ensure that there are continuing improvements required, obligated as part of the arrangement, and that there is some demonstration that they are financially capable, willing, and able to pursue those. And if we can't get something like that, then I think the recourse, to Al's point, the last course of action would be to have to take it over ourselves, or maybe it's we do the capital improvements ourselves and lease out the operation side as kind of that middle ground, so that we ensure that the the capitalization of the property is maintained on a regular basis, and we don't end up in a situation in 10 years where, lo and behold, everything's out of, all the carts are in trash condition, the irrigation system needs replacing again or whatever, and we're left with a contractor that's walked off and not done.
If I could, at this point, if you don't mind, everyone, I'm going to try and distill where I think we are and what I've heard. And I think Councilman Bowie just made a very good point. And I'm speaking from a practical standpoint. And that is, though they may have been required to make the investment, it seems they chose not to. And I don't have the contract in front of me. I'm just trying to distill this. And the point being, and I think Councilman Wolfie made it very clear, is that it would be a tough business decision to say I'm going to go and put in $1.3 million of my money if I'm not being forced to do it, and then know that I may no longer have the contract. And so with no teeth, as they put it, to require them to make those investments, they simply chose not to. I think it would be difficult, but again, that's what we're talking about. And city manager and staff would be able to go out and look and see if someone would be willing to do just what Council Wolfley and also Council Member Harrison was talking about, is make that investment. and doing such in such a way that we wouldn't overprice our citizens to play there. So I think where we find ourselves is in that point of, if we're going to look at making the investment in there for those major renovations, not major, the basics, the irrigation and other things, which we've also heard environmentally would make sense for us. We've heard that before. To do those and then have an opportunity and make a decision sooner than later to be able to get something on the street, i.e. request for quote, RFP or whatever, and then see what kind of feedback we get. Because we could be in a situation, number one, we don't want to invest too much because even with whatever we have, it's still a pandemic. We're still trying to make sure we keep costs down. I think all of us have said that over and over. And we want to make sure that we keep a good amenity, though. And we want to make it something that's viable for our citizens. So at this point, my real question to you, staff, city manager, is if we make that investment, do you think, I would imagine we could get a better deal from someone, i.e. to operate it, than if we simply ask them to make all the investments? Because if I were to be the one to do that, I'd have to expect you to make a much longer contract period. So
what I intend to do when it expires in October, right?
In September.
In September. What I intend to do in June or sooner is to, with direction, with some of y'all's approval, put the RFP out requesting proposals for somebody to assume the lease operation of the golf course, with an expectation that they're going to make some infrastructure improvements along with us.
Right.
And then we'll see what happens. I do know that some people are interested in the golf course. We all know that, and maybe there are others. But and maybe the current contractor will get some new blood, because I know some people have gone on and passed away and all that sort of thing. Well, maybe that organization will get some new people and reform their organization and compete. But whoever competes, and we're an agreement's going to have teeth in it, no doubt about that, and it's going to be enforceable from our perspective, and we're certainly going to be auditing, and not unlike what happened before, and to make sure that they're in compliance with what they've agreed to do in writing, and what's not enforced.
City manager, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think what the other council member from District 4 was trying to get at too, was trying to just make sure we understood what the concerns were, i.e. the rationale that some of the personnel or whoever may have been saying of why they couldn't get things done and that kind of thing. And I think that goes back to, I believe, Assistant City Manager Mears, you were saying that there isn't anyone who really makes decisions that we can talk to. Is that correct?
The current ownership all live in Florida. They are not local here. So they have primary residence in Florida. They still keep a home here and come back from time to time, but the ownership structure is not local anymore. So I did want to make one clarification in regards to, we've been talking about not having made capital improvements. This is a very long time that Bowie Golf Management has had the lease of this golf course. They've had it for 4 decades now, and they have made capital improvements. They put an addition onto the clubhouse. They've made investment in the maintenance facility, the grounds. There have been capital investments over the years, and they've put in significant amounts of money over the years. But the challenge is in more recent times, in terms of that more recent need for capital investment, like putting a new roof onto the existing clubhouse. It is something that needs to be done, and it's not being done, and they have made the decision not to do it. And as Mr. Lott indicated, they came to the city 4 years ago to express that the golf and their operation was so bad financially that not only could they not make the capital improvements, but they could no longer keep the payment to the city going that was under the contract. So they, through their own presentations to the city, said that they were not going to be making the investments in capital and could not be doing so under the environment of golf at that time.
Let me expound on that. I mean, just so everybody can understand how I was feeling that day. One, I didn't even know we owned that golf course, okay? And I thought some other entity owned it, but I learned that. So when they came in and said, oh, look, we're in trouble, we can't do this. And oh, by the way, you have to do something. You know, and we need $1 million worth of this and $250,000 for this. And it's your property, what are you gonna do? That's how it was presented to me. And so I took it to the council, and the council at the time wanted to keep it around, so we made some adjustments. And that's why we put about $1 million in there in over the last 4 years. So that's how it was, but that's okay. It happened. There was no malice of forethought. There was nobody was, trying to do anything wrong. It's just the way it happened. But so here we are, and I think we're in a position to go out and see if we can find somebody who wants to take it over and run a class golf operation in the city, and we ought to give that a shot.
Okay, any other council members have any questions right now?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So I was just going to ask, so it sounds like the least option is the best one for the city from a cost perspective. It addresses all the major things that we need. If I remember back to our past hearings on this with the current managers, these are all the things that they said needed to be done. So it sounds like the least option is the best one. My big thing is I just want to make sure that we retain control of the golf course, and specifically that the city is the owner, right? Regardless of what happens. Yeah, I prefer the idea of leasing it, given that it seems to be the most fiscally sensible for us. But I don't want us, I would caution us against entertaining options where we seek to turn over control of the property to someone else. Because, I mean, look, we know in the last 10 years the golf industry's been hit hard, right? People in my age range aren't playing golf as much. So I can understand, I can imagine why in recent years they've had a harder time, making investments towards it. I also know that our rates there are extremely low and that they've been reluctant to raise them for a lot of reasons. So, I mean, I'm personally leaning option 4. I just want to make sure that we don't enter into a situation where we decide to sell this to somebody else and lose control over it. Because in the long term, my fear is that in that scenario, if someone else takes over and can't make money and they're the owner, they could do just about anything with this, in the long term. So that's my main concern. I just don't want us to entertain options or lose control.
Well, it's not my intent to propose anything like selling the golf course, but to lease it where we're the landlord just like we are now.
Gotcha. My only other thing we know we can get in touch with the current owners.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Can we just get them to come and talk to us about some of this stuff so we have a better understanding of what's going on and what their actual organization looks like moving forward? And because it sounds like we're having a material disagreement about a lot of stuff here, and I'm kind of curious to hear their perspective.
I don't think we're having any disagreement, and ultimately the ownership that we have today, they're going to be gone this year. Quite frankly, any input that they have for us, the ownership of Bowie Golf Management, they're not the future in terms of what's going on for us.
They're mostly senior citizens who are retired and have expended a great deal of their own personal asset capital in the operations of the golf course in the past, and they're not prepared to do that anymore. That's one of the other issues. So, not to get.
But is there opportunity for them to tell us that?
Yeah, I'd be kind of curious as to their
We can ask.
I mean, I understand. I mean, of course, I mean, I have total faith in what you and Dan are saying, but I really would like to hear from them. That's just my own opinion.
What would we love to know from them?
What's that now?
Sorry, what would we like to know from them, the Bowie Golf Management?
What their status is?
I think, hey, Mike, can you repeat exactly what you just said in terms of meeting with the current owners? Because I think that's exactly what we're asking for. So what we're looking for is the city to set up that meeting in the terms of exactly what Councilman Esteb just asked for, as well as Councilwoman Harrison.
I was just saying that the current owners, as far as we can tell, aren't dead, right?
No.
They're still the current owners.
Yeah.
They might live in Florida, but that's not dead yet.
No.
So we can get in touch with these folks. And mostly I just want to hear from their perspective, you know, why certain decisions were made. And I'm also genuinely curious about what they think about this.
We can certainly make that request,
Yeah.
but we can't guarantee that they'll volunteer to do it.
Can I ask a
All
question?
right, but we certainly can.
Yeah, can I make a point here? I agree that we probably should, it'll be nice to hear from them, right? Because there's a lot of questions, especially as we move forward with a new leasing option with whomever, whether it's their predator or their successors who are currently employees of theirs, or it's a different thing, right? We do kind of want to understand the oversight. But to be blunt here, it does seem like the oversight piece wasn't 100% on us as more as it was on them at the time as well, right? So I don't know if hearing from them will give us the insight that we're looking for, instead of actually muddying the waters and making it more of a he said, she said 30 years ago fight that has something to do with moving forward right now, right? I mean, we may get some insight as to, hey, here are our current employees and this is what we believe they're going to be able to do for this golf course. But I don't know if it really is going to answer the question. I think it may muddy the waters a little bit more.
I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree. I think it's important for us. Yeah, I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree on that. I think it's important for us to hear that. I think in order for us to make the best decisions going forward, there needs to be a certain level of transparency there. So whether it muddies the waters or not, I think that's context that the council needs to have and needs to hear. So irregardless of whether they accept the meeting or not, I think it's our responsibility to reach out to them and initiate that contact to be able to understand going forward, like as Michael Esteb said, whether it's their successors, what happened, whatever that looks like, I think that's context that the council needs to have. So I wholeheartedly disagree with that one.
I also just, and sorry, I don't mean to jump in. I also just genuinely also want to hear like what the golf management company's entities plans are moving forward. I'm genuinely curious. I want to know whether or not they are even going to be around to make a bid. And I'm also curious about what their thoughts are on the industry. I mean, even if they're living in Florida now, they were overseeing this, right? Whether or not we agree with their perspective, I also genuinely just want to hear, like, what do you think? I mean, is this business going to survive? I just genuinely want to hear more data.
I will share this for the benefit of where staff has been with this. We have been looking at the relationship with Bowie Golf Management, excuse me, as just being over with, and we want to get to the point come the end of September where we move along with a new entity or a new operational standpoint. Bowie Golf Management has a couple of the owners have died. The person that was most day-to-day in terms of the operation and taking care of the golf course and doing that is deceased and is no longer there. Right. The current ownership partners that exist were the initial financier, sort of the money guy, and was not, from my understanding, actively engaged in the operation of the golf course. And the other owner that exists has been sort of their accountant and bookkeeper person. Neither of those individuals, who are Bowie Golf Management, really have had the day-to-day operational interface and management of the golf course.
Well, look,
yeah.
We will communicate with them and tell them that you all would like to hear from them as soon as possible. And we'll see, hopefully they'll respond and be prepared to come forward.
That's good.
See that under these circumstances. We'll certainly communicate with them in writing and let them know that you all would like to hear from Bowie Golf Management. And so we won't be bringing the employees here for discussion because their perspective on this is different. But the management is all the guys we've been dealing with. We'll ask them to come forward and hopefully we can get them scheduled during the budget process if in fact they're willing to come here and talk and have the back and forth.
Yeah, if we could get them and set up a Zoom or whatever and do that.
I mean, if we'll get them, we'll ask them, but, you
Yeah,
know,
all you can do is ask.
if
That's
they,
all you can do.
you know, won't participate.
Hey,
I'm sorry, Roxy, you're on mute. Oh, you weren't saying that? What I'd like to say at this point is, why don't we look at doing that, moving forward with that? I am one who believes that there's a critical path here, and I would also ask staff if they would to please start drafting up what would be the general guidelines of what we would be looking for in a lease agreement.
We're working on that already, sir. We're working on the RFP already, and we'll.
Right, and so let's just have that to go. So, and I don't know if you've already done it, and if we haven't, let's look at that. And that's just my suggestion. Again, that's for us as a council to decide. But I think we just do those two, like a critical path at the same time, understanding that they may not get back with us, and we can't force them to do that. But at least we will have reached out to try and answer some of the questions that the council members have.
Hey,
Any comments on that? Concerns, Councilwoman?
I just had a really quick question, just so it can make sense a little bit more. Last year, we had, I guess, people that either were employees associated with, I don't know what the proper classification is, because today it seems a little different. We had them come forth and present to us. If they weren't the owners, like, why did we allow them to present? And what was that presentation for if we're talking about only speaking with the owners and not employees? Like, why did they present to us?
Well, I think at least one council member supported them coming forward and Mr. Carrington and making his pitch. So therefore, he got to talk to you, but it was pretty clear that he was making a case for a particular person to continue to manage the golf course. I mean, without looking at the video again, that was he was operating as if he was that person's representative. But, professionally, we would have to consider an entity, an organized entity to lease this organization, to lease our facility. And they have to demonstrate to us that they had the financial and managerial capacity to run it. And it'll take more than Mr. Carrington coming up and making a pitch for one guy, which is what happened.
Thank you.
I want to go back to some of the more pedantic stuff. On the proposals for the minimal improvements and the quote maximum, which it's actually the second middle ground. Nick, can you talk a little bit about the figures? We got about a 1.6 million for cart path renovation. Yet when we're looking in the next category, we have grounds renovations. Is that the same thing, or do we have grounds renovation? Is that some other? Could you talk through what those renovations might be in the middle option, the 7 million option?
Yes, sir. So let me put myself on video here. Excuse me. So when you get into the grounds renovation, what we see is a hybrid model between a minimum improvement and taking some of the more significant golf course changes that were outlined in the McDonald study. So if you look at the full McDonald study, McDonald and Son study, it actually shows reorienting certain greens, and much of that was to place the clubhouse in a new location and expand the golf driving range. And if you look at the McDonald study, it was to create a recreational venue that is not dissimilar to Topgolf. So it was to basically have the back wall of the golf clubhouse open up to the driving range. So think food, beverages, golf driving range, all combined. So again, it's a hybrid model, and it starts talking about rerouting certain greens and certain holes. And in my opinion, without doing the clubhouse, it doesn't bring significant value to the discussion. It really is, in my opinion, either a minimal improvement or the city council believes in the McDonald's study and wants to spend the capital and go with a maximum improvement if we were to operate it. So it's one path or the other. I don't personally see significant value in the middle road.
So the middle road, so what you're suggesting is the middle road is the rerouting of those holes.
Correct.
Okay.
It could be a step towards redoing the golf clubhouse, many years down the road, a decade, 15 years down the road, and ultimately fulfilling that McDonald and Son vision. But again, that would be there is value from that standpoint. If the city said, 20 years from now, we would love to see that happen. That is the middle step.
Okay. All right. Well, I share your position on that. I don't see much value in going to the expense of rerouting all those holes and not having the other expensive amenity to go with it. So okay, I'm comfortable with that. So now, if we're looking at the lease improvements, if we were to do it that way, so cart path renovations, I assume it's just straight up taking care of all the paths. And the clubhouse, what would that look like? Would it just be going in doing the structural and maintaining the current footprint?
So the clubhouse improvements would include the structural, would include the roofing, and we suspect would have enough funds to upgrade the 19th hole section as well. There is a deck that is I'm going to call it the front as you approach, walk up the path to the
Sure.
clubhouse. That is pretty. It's in terrible shape. So there's lots of different improvements highlighted in that $1 million.
All right. So if that's the case, then we're looking, if we are to pursue, Mr. Lott, kind of the recommended course of action here, we could put ourselves in a position where we start looking at these capital improvements. And is your thought to see if somebody else in this, the lease improvement listing, if somebody else is willing to do that, or if we do that and then have somebody else take on the lease for pretty much the operation?
Either or.
Either or, okay. And that would be the option as part of the, as part of the RFP. Okay, well, I'm comfortable with that. Because that means that we could be in a position where we say, somebody else, we want you to come in and make these improvements.
Well, for example, if we do them all, and say, okay, here's the course, take it, run it, then we'll, in that case, I would insist on a monthly lease fee.
Yep.
But if they're gonna do them all, well, maybe we don't charge them that for 5 years.
Yep, okay, good.
That kind of incentive. And so, that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, I like that. Because I agree with you. I don't know, I mean, presumably we'll get a mix of offers between somebody who comes in and says, I'll use your capital and trust me to run it and operate it day to day. But we'll use your capital because I'm not that kind of entity. Or somebody else that says, I'm Daddy Warbucks and I got money hanging around. I got a line of credit that I can drop on this project. And I can.
And there are some people who come to us and said that. I mean, on that case, if they're going to come in and make the adjustments, make those corrections, then we would in fact, okay, fine. Well, you get 5 years without lease payments, and then we take over, and then we have some give and take. And then we could still continue to do our $250 a year to help them out. And like Michael said, we maintain, we continue to be a landlord. All right, a lot of fun. I think you all should have your next meeting on the golf course. Next meeting on the golf course. That way you can get a good feeling for it and all that stuff.
So can I jump in real quick, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
So, from what I'm understanding, it sounds like the room is leaning option 4. We maintain control. We do the lease. Before we do any RFP, though, I would like to hear from the current management structure Because if it turns out that they still exist as an entity and plan on existing as an entity in some way, I would like to know that. And I would also be curious to see from them, you know, what realistically is an arrangement that you guys would like to do. Because it sounds like they're saying, or at least someone over there is saying, that they would like to continue in some form. And I really just want to hear the details.
Well,
you know what I mean? Before we jump on looking.
Sure thing. I mean, it would be May-ish before I come to you with an RFP. Because in order
So we've
for
got
us
plenty of time
to make a timely transition, to be able to look, get the RFP out, look at the proposals, and then take action in September, we need to do something in May. However, it's also my position that since this is a public entity, you know, we have to afford the opportunity to lease this property to everybody, and without any preference. Otherwise, we, you know, this is wrong. So, and anybody, to include the current guys, if they want to compete, are free to compete and present a proposal.
So if there's no I mean, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to suggest if there's no objection, then are we comfortable with getting Golf Management Company to talk to us at the earliest possible date then?
Oh, well, I thought you already told me to do that. Yes,
Oh,
we're going to do that. We're going to write them a letter.
Yeah.
We're going to request for them to meet with you all via Zoom, or if they want to apply, they can do it. And we will report back to you what their response is. All right.
Yeah. And I would still like for you, city manager, to still take the steps you need to do to get that RFP on the street. Because regardless of what they say, you still are obligated to get bids. I mean, it's not like we.
Yeah.
So please continue, as we said earlier, to continue to do that. I think everybody's in agreement with that, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, in agreement with that.
Councilwoman?
I agree. But I definitely want to hear from you.
Before,
New management companies.
if that's you, Council Member, Mayor Pro Tem, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Sorry.
Okay, so I think Councilman DeFore, you're good with that as well?
Yeah, I am. That's fine. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure there's a lot of value in it, but it certainly I don't think it does any harm. I do think that just from a path forward standpoint, you know, I'm in concurrence with where staff is generally going, which is we need to, as a first step, a cardinal direction is heading towards a new lease for
the mayor's question is around the moving forward to prepare for the RFP. That's what his question is around.
That's what I'm getting to.
Oh.
So it's my expectation that staff moves forward with this with the understanding that there's two options. One is where we're making the capital expenditures, and the other where somebody comes in and would be willing to we'll do it without that. With I think obviously the preference for somebody doing it, you know, bringing in their own capital, and that as opposed to doing anything like just saying we're going to run it ourselves or hand it over to the option block. So,
yeah, we'll write it in a fashion where the proposers have some flexibility and for what they can propose and still be within the parameters of the what we're asking for.
Yeah, and I think importantly to maintain the community nature of this as an amenity for the community in terms of pricing, and we're not looking for Taj Mahal from the standpoint of you know the top golf type of experience, but instead looking for what amounts to a local golf course that's manageable for the community.
Yeah,
and I don't want us to forget that, Dufour, because we had so many letters come in during that meeting where we had Daryl Carrington and John speak to us. So we definitely need to make sure that we take heavy consideration, which I think we're doing, to what the public wants to see as far as a golf course amenity is concerned.
And in the meantime, as you heard from Nick with the staff, we're taking a look at, in the event we do not get a responsive proposal, one that is acceptable to the city, we are establishing a framework for what it would take for the city to be able to take it over, so we do not lose golf as an amenity. We've gotten the message very clear. We want to maintain golf as an amenity. There have been rumors based on these meetings that the city is going to be selling the golf course. We do not want that out there. So we are having that as a floor in case we do not get any responsive proposals for running the golf course, that we are prepared to be able to continue that.
We're prepared to do it after you all give us a direction to do it, specific direction to take it over. All right? Then we,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Makes sense to me.
Yes, I think we're all in agreement. I think we have our action moving forward at this time. Okay, if there's no further questions or thing left, I think we've come to agreement on that. We're forward.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
I think we can move to the second item now.
Mr. Mayor, you know, I mean, we wrote a memo that laid out some estimates. I think Councilwoman Harrison asked for some numbers, and we have those. Those are certainly estimates, intelligent estimates. And so we don't have a lot to present regarding this particular issue. Currently, you know, as far as the budget, I'm planning to include the standard amount of money for maintenance of the current ice rink. All right. Now, I guess the question from our perspective is, you know, we put the Hughes Group study in there. I'm sure you all read through that too, and you all know what the task force told you. We were informed 4 years ago that this ice rink was dilapidated and about the, as we used to say in aviation, about to crash and burn. And it would have, the cost for renovating it was unreasonable, and therefore the council at the time went forth with the initially the sports center operation, but then eventually went to the 2 ice rinks. So my question is right now we know that the facility is in dire straits. And if it's the intent of the council to try to renovate it in its current status, you know, it would seem that we would have to get and maybe we do need a second opinion on the condition of the facility, other than Hughes Group, because one could argue that the Hughes Group, since they were attached to the eventual construction, may have been a little biased. I'm not saying that because I'm not questioning their integrity, so I don't want them to sue me. But you know, before, and it seems prudent to me as the chief financial officer for the city, that before we start putting any more money into this facility, that we get a licensed architect and a structural engineer to take a look at it to see if it can withstand a renovation. And if we don't do that, we could be, I'm not saying we'll be making a significant managerial decision that could hurt us down the line, especially if in the middle of the renovation, something else is discovered that we don't know about, that you need to be a structural engineer to identify. And so that's what I wanted to say before we got started, but that's all. I'll hand it off back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I hear you, city manager, and actually, I don't think, and I'll let others give their thoughts, I don't think there's any other way to proceed than to first get a new assessment of what really the state is. So I agree with that, and I think as we look at that, we probably would need to get a new assessment of what the costs are and those kind of things as well. But I do believe we need a structural engineer, particularly as we look at the roof as that first part, just where we are.
Can I make a quick statement?
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
it's my opinion. Obviously, we all know the drama we've been through over the last couple months regarding this project, but we do have to move quickly, right? I'm sure a lot of my colleagues are also getting the same emails and calls I'm getting, that folks are under the impression that we don't want to move forward on this. I think this meeting is quite the contrary, right? We do have to fix this. There is no question about that. And we have to move quickly on it, given the state of it. And to my opinion, you know, as I've read the Hughes Group analysis a couple of times, I would like to get a second opinion. I agree with the city manager on that. But I don't know if that waits till the budget process is done, right? My hope is that us as a council can get something definitive in budget that says, hey, the recommendations from the task force, which was what the whole entire intent was, right? To get a recommendation so that this budget cycle, we can go ahead and move forward on those recommendations, right? So as we have this conversation, I do want us to strategically think about if we are going to bring somebody in that's kind of going to do a kind of a part two of what the Hughes Group did, that's also not attached to the construction piece of it, preferably, then we should do that sooner than later, right? Because we're going to need to get this done regardless. So yeah, that's just my standpoint.
Well, I mean, we have the monies in this current fiscal year budget in several places in the budget where we could, in my contingency, in the maintenance operations budget, where we could spend, you know, we could appropriate some money, $30,000 to $50,000, and get those people going. But it will take. I mean, we are government here. Right? It takes. We have to get proposals and all that. It could take a while to get somebody in there. We can certainly have it ongoing, I would expect, by the end of the budget process, and hopefully have a product. What we could do for the FY22 budget is put a certain amount of money in making this 22 budget year being year one, and put some money for evaluation and design and words, terms like that, you know, somewhere between $0 to $100,000. And then in year two, being next year's budget, we can plan for making an out year, one of the things, either the HVAC or the roof. And of course, that would be contingent on the results of this particular evaluation.
Yes.
And so that's a way to move forward and take an affirmative action, considering we are a local government and we can only move so fast without getting in trouble.
Is it possible to be, I agree with that, and this is open to discussion, but can we be a tad more aggressive on other things we can get done this budget cycle immediately, right?
I was going to ask the same question. I think we need to really look at what can we do now.
Yeah, agree.
Because we keep putting it off, and it's just not fair to the residents. I mean, they wanted the other ice rink, and I get it, we canceled that project, but now we're saying, okay, we're going to bring in somebody else, which I do agree with, getting a second opinion, but we can't keep putting off some of these structural issues and these issues that have to do with safety specifically that the task force brought forward. We can't keep putting those off. So whatever we can do now, then I really would like to see something happen. I mean, we made a promise to the residents, and we really need to make sure we fulfill that. But I also want to make sure that the building is structurally sound, and whatever we can do now and however we need to do that, I'd like to see how we can do that.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Nick. This is,
yes.
Mr. Mayor, this is Henry Gardner. City Manager, is there any method that we maybe waive any RFP for having a firm to come out and do an evaluation of the structure?
I couldn't.
You must know if you could waive the requirement for an RFP with sole source people. We can use the word source.
Yeah, sole source to save time, so that then we'll know the condition of the structure, and then from there we can then decide as a group whether we're going to invest money into repairing, demolish, and reconstruct,
sure,
whatever.
I mean, we could go on and find one group and one company, but that would not be our normal practice, of course. And
And I understand that's not your normal process. Just for the sake of time and where we are now, because we may be facing an issue to where we are offering nothing.
with this current ice rink building, we could have a building, we could have an issue, shut it down next week.
Okay.
And the use group is
I got
quick. But yeah, we
Nick,
could do that.
hey, Nick.
Yes, sir.
I see Nick keep trying to raise his hand. Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, sir. So I just want to highlight that staff has proactively developed an RFP for architectural and engineering services to request the end product being a detailed renovation program for the ice arena. We've worked on that through the winter time, but we wanted to also allow the opportunity for the ice arena task force to present their findings. So we didn't put this out before that report came in. So it's my understanding that we're ready to do this in early February. It is an unfunded RFP at this point, though. There, from our standpoint, there has not been a dedicated funding source. That would have to be from City Council or the city manager to determine how to pay for that. But we have been proactive in that. That process would take some time to fully vet the facility and get that structural analysis completed. So just sharing that we have done some work on that and are prepared to move forward in February with advertising if city manager is in agreement and city council is in agreement.
So Nick,
Okay.
how long of a process are we actually looking at? I mean, just realistically, what time, how long would it take to get this done from
So we had intended to advertise for approximately 30 days, so putting it out mid-February, getting results back from firms mid-March, awarding a contract within the 2, 3, 4 week time period that it takes to review those, present the cost center, which is undetermined at this point, to City Council. Go through the proper advertising and public notice, and then bringing them in to do that. Our goal when we established our schedule, our draft schedule as it stands right this second, was to get findings back in October. By October, that would be a full detailed report that would allow us to present those findings to City Council, and ultimately, if we planned on moving forward with a renovation program, having that highlighted in the capital budget submittal for FY23 next December when we submit our January, I should say, when we submit our recommendations to the city manager.
Thank you, Nick.
All right.
Councilman Gardner,
Thank you,
are you
Mr.
still there?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I am.
Go ahead. Any other questions?
No, not at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Nick.
Mr. Mayor, Nick, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Although I have some concerns with the Hughes Group's analysis, more from a cost standpoint, a hypothetical situation here, right? They did come in and they did an analysis, and it's at X dollar point. If we were to say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to repair this building, based on the Hughes Group's estimation, and hey, we have a dollar figure in our head, but it comes in significantly lower, doesn't that eliminate the timeline from now to October of getting a structural analysis, right? We don't need a structural analysis if it already happened, right? I think the disagreement that I have with Hughes is more on the cost end, but they aren't the ones who are going to come in and actually do the repairs itself. So if we remove that middleman process, wouldn't we be in the same place being in October?
Yeah, so the way this process traditionally works is you wouldn't have somebody come in to evaluate and tell us what's wrong and have same said person do the repairs. That's has potential ethics issues there. They could say that there's problem X and it's much more significant than what really exists, and they're just lining their pockets. I hate to say that, but that's not the process here. We would have an independent engineer that would tell us what it is that's wrong, would outline what that is, give us the bid specs ultimately that we could take said project out to bid, and then we'd have an independent contractor that would come in and do those repairs. To your point, Councilman Boafo, what the big concern right now, and the challenge, I would say, not concern, but challenge for staff is the fact that, well, we do not know the exact details I guess, extent of structural concerns at this facility. That is who we need to come in and do. That is the biggest item right here is under phase 1. As staff has outlined. They could come in and maybe there's $1 million worth of repairs, or it could be very significant. And it goes back to the city manager's comment. Until we get in there and find out the exact extent, we could find some things that we're not sure we never knew existed. So we really need to get that expertise in here to outline what those the concerns are. We need a really healthy baseline. The Hughes groups did a high-level study. We need a detailed, in-the-weeds type study.
Well, I think the Mayor Pro Tem was considering using the Hughes data to go forth with an RFP for the renovations.
So yeah, what I was saying was agreed on the ethical piece of having somebody say, hey, here are the structural issues, and here's how we're going to fix them. However, if they identified the structural issues for us, right, and priced them out, which they have done technically, although I disagree personally, and I'm speaking only for myself and not for my council members and my colleagues, although I personally disagree with the price point in which they have priced them out, we now have a task force that has reviewed what we want to get done. We have a Hughes group, architect firm that has said, here are the structural issues. And if we bring out an RFP that says, hey, here's what we want to get done and what is your price to do that, I'm saying that cuts that in that timeline and also saves us money on the back end, right? We don't have to get another structural group to come and say what we already kind of know. Here are our problems, and here's how much it's going to actually cost you. We can just skip that process since Hughes Group we didn't go with their architect. We're not going with their construction firm to do this time around. So my question is, couldn't we do that, which would shorten the timeline, save us some money on the back end, and actually get this project completed once and for all?
It's my opinion that we still need the expert to come in and do that analysis. The Hughes Group was, again, a high-level review. The task force, similarly, is a high-level review, their work product. None of those are bid-ready documents. Nobody provided bid-ready documents to say this is exactly what is wrong. They basically took a look at it, took a look at the beams. They got up there and got up near the rafters and whatnot. And yes, there's issues there, but nobody has, from an engineering perspective, written a scope of service. So technically, we don't have anything to bid out. And I would say it would be dangerous to go and say, yeah, we got these high-level reports and go fix something, because I'm not sure exactly what they would be fixing.
And Nick,
Mr. Mayor.
You are saying that we would be doing this as a phased approach, i.e., we could get the structural done and we could look at all of it.
That is
start off with something that could get us a possible on the structural itself. Is that correct?
That is correct. Staff reviewed the Ice Arena Task Force memo to council and highlighted and basically placed each of those repairs into different phasing categories. And the first item, phase 1, from staff's perspective, the most important was to tackle the structural and roof membrane and support structures. So that would be phase 1. It would not make sense to do anything below the roof and structure until we have that structure nice and firm and safe.
And I think what all my other council members are saying, and I agree with them, but we need to figure out how to make sure we do this on the fast track for the citizens. We need to make this fast track. And so I'll turn it back to you, City Manager. I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that's on Councilman Gardner. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes. What I'm hearing here is that, and Nick, if you would, and City Manager, if either one of you would chime in if I'm going off track here. But what I'm hearing is that you are not wanting to make an investment on the roof structure unless you have an idea as what the total repairs are required for this facility. No one has any idea how the structure itself, how sound it is, the entire facility, how sound it is. And if we put monies in for roof repair, and then the flooring or the walls or whatever else has other issues, it is what I'm hearing, and tell me, Nick, if I'm not hearing this correctly. You are reluctant to wanting to put any monies in until we have a complete sound assessment of the structure itself, correct?
So that is correct, and Councilman Gardner, the best way for me to communicate this is, we've had folks come in and tell us there's a problem. We have not had anybody specifically, from an engineering background come in and tell us what the solution is. So we need somebody to come in and tell us what the solution is and what that's going to cost. So that the Hughes group was great. They came in, they told us here's the cost. Here's the costs. Worst case scenario, because there clearly are problems in the building, but they didn't write out to us and prescribe the solution to us. So what we need to do now is to get the correct professional engineers on site to prescribe to us what those solutions are and provide us those budgetary numbers to move forward.
Okay. Now, it is of my understanding, and having historically speaking on this project, the building, it was recommended by the previous department, it was recommended to the previous council by the previous city manager to demolish the building and to construct from the ground up. I'm not hearing that now, but I'm trying to figure out how has that changed, or if it hasn't changed, then we need to get a group in there to do a complete, not just a partial assessment, but a full assessment of that facility prior to investing any additional dollars into it, because we're just throwing money to the wind if we then turn around and we're going to need flooring, or turn around, we're going to need plumbing. I was told that there was a massive mold issue. I was told that there were some of the beams had rotted. I was told multiple times and that this building needed to be demolished. Now, if this is still the case, then we need to get someone out there and do a complete full assessment, not just of the roof, not just of the plumbing, but a complete full assessment. And we should have that done sooner rather than later. And maybe, and this is where I was going with this city manager, is maybe doing a sole source contract to some firm out there, have them come in, give us a complete assessment of the condition of that building. And then we take that and put that out on open bid to the market and see if we can get some responses for the either repair, demolition, or whatever we decide to go with it after we have a complete assessment of that facility.
If I may, I'd like to chime in on that. I think the issue that we're all trying to get to is how quickly can we do this? Because
I think at this point now, time is of a concern. But what we have at our advantage right now is that we are in the middle of a pandemic, so we're not going to have massive amount of people wanting to skate at one time. So we could use this time to try and get these things done in an orderly fashion without spending any additional unnecessary dollars. Because respectfully, guys, we've already thrown away several $1 million when it comes to ICE. We shouldn't want to waste any more of the taxpayer dollars. So it would behoove us to working smart, regardless of the time that it may take. And we may even have to go without providing ICE until we get this done correctly. I think the residents would want to will understand if we had to go temporarily without a facility while we get things correct and done correctly at a reasonable cost.
All right. So to your point, Henri, I think the first thing is I think that we need to, move with all due speed. What I heard earlier from Mr. Spurgeon was that we have all the RFP material there at the ready. It just needs funding, which I think, this group is probably quite willing to do. I think the sole source doesn't save us much. That's just 30 days. Putting it out on the street for 30 days versus trying to find somebody is probably going to take you a week or two anyway. So,
well, if we
one second. So I think the real time savings is on the back end, right? Which is we want to get somebody in here to do the assessment, to do it as quickly as possible, to do it thoroughly, so that we have, to your point, an understanding of what needs to be done across the board. Now, I think the real time savings is in terms of the funding and the budget cycle, and not waiting for out-year budget cycles, budget years to do the work. And I think that that's where we bring it in. So if we find out if it takes until September to get the final report, then in October we should be deciding, which of the items on the list we're doing in what order. Presumably the engineers will tell us, and literally start working that in October and not waiting to the following fiscal year for execution. I mean, I want to remind everybody, we have $18 million in capital funding from that bond that we should be spending on capital projects, not operational stuff, not day-to-day business. That should be
on capital projects.
This project needs to be at the top of the list for that funding. We've got the money for this. I don't think it needs to wait for ensuing fiscal years, because we've got the cash in hand for that. And
totally agree.
I think that the corollary to that is, there's also going to be additional money that's still there left over when we're done with that. I mean, that's the full expectation. So I think that that's the course of action we need to be on, is get the engineers in here. We've got somebody at the ready with an RFP about ready to go out the door, give guidance, whether it's in this forum or elsewhere to in a voting meeting, if it needs to be in a voting meeting. I'm not sure if it does or not, to get you the money to go and pursue that engineering effort, and then get that done as quickly as we can, and obviously then start rolling out with this. Because as I look at the requirements list, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I'm all in for the the roof that needs to be done, and the siding, and redoing the ice, whatever needs to be there. It needs to get done to make that a sustainable facility.
Well, we can.
But again, before Councilman, we have to be certain that we're putting these items in a facility that is worth doing so. If it would not be wise to put flooring, ice.
Yeah, that's the whole engineering thing. The engineer will tell us that on Rico.
Yeah. So what was the name of the group? You said the Hughes Group. I'm sorry, that did the work previous assessment.
Right, it was Hughes. Yes.
Is it possible to call them out and ask them to do a full, complete assessment of that facility?
They're the last. I'm going to tell you,
pay them for their service.
The last people I would want on this project.
Agreed.
They are.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you guys.
Sorry, we're kind of talking over each other. Who was responding to the councilman's question?
I am. I was responding, which is that they're the last people that I would want to do this work. They came.
Why?
Because they came in here a number of years ago, did a cursory review, came up with worst case scenarios, and that was kind of the underlying budget decision about going forward with the other. They're not an independent, unengaged, uninvolved organization, and they should go through. Anybody else that wants to come in should come in just as part of the budget. The proposal process. It's only 30 days. Get a good readout, a good report.
Okay. Was it Hughes though? I'm asking. My question is this.
Yes.
Was it Hughes that asked for this building, or who suggested, which organization or which group did an assessment and suggested demolition of the building?
I don't think that was.
I don't think anybody did.
No, no one.
Nobody came and said demolish it.
No. The former city manager, David Dalk, said, and I clearly remember, he stated that it was recommended by a group, and I don't know which group it was, that the building would be to be demolished.
I can provide you insights on that, Andre. That was based on the fact that we had the new arena with the 2 sheets of ice, and then the question was, what do you do with the old building?
No, that's not correct. It was suggested to build the 2 sheets of ice because of the condition of the old building, that we put no more money. It was suggested by the former city manager that we put no more money into that facility because it was told to us that it was to be demolished. It was recommended by a group to demolish the building because of its condition. And this is why we then went to a double-sheeted facility.
Yeah, no, I hear, Andre, the original proposal was it would be so expensive, it'd be just better to build a new facility. But that is not the same.
I think at this point, if I
hold on, Mr. May, one moment, a second. It's not the same thing as tear down the old building. Their thought was build a new building. The whole discussion of tearing down the current building was subsequent. No doubt that they said we should go back and go spend the big bucks on a new building. But the subsequent notion of what do we do with it afterwards, that's when it was introduced about tearing it down instead of trying it, because if you recall, we talked about maybe using it for basketball or other purposes.
It was suggested that, again, that the building could not even accommodate basketball.
Right.
Because it should be demolished. And this is when, and maybe, and respectfully, before I'm going to say this respectfully, it is what I recall is that because of the condition of the building, everyone then came running to me, asking me to support the demolition or building of a new facility. At one point, it was not 2 sheets of ice. Again, it was a facility that was to hold 1 sheet of ice with some courts under one roof. And because they said that the existing facility had outlived its life, it could no longer be upgraded, and the conditions, the rot and the mold and all, it needed to be demolished. This is how it was presented to me, that the existing facility no longer had any life left in it, so therefore we needed to build a new facility, and under that new facility was going to be 1 sheet of ice with court. Then the council moved to putting 2 sheets of ice and dropping the court. That's how it was presented to me. That's how I clearly remember it. That it was told to me that the building was in poor condition and it had to be demolished because of its age and condition.
What I might suggest at this time is, city manager, if you could just check to see if there was some report or something that said that, and because I had.
I'll take a look and we'll look back. I'll talk to Wilder and David's been gone for 5 years, so we might have to go back a while. But I think we've had a couple of evaluations of that facility over the last 10 years. So,
because I think we're at a point where nobody here has a recollection of it. So.
Well, I do.
No, I mean of who the company was.
I have complete recollection.
No,
I mean that respectfully to everyone.
No. Councilman, I was just saying nobody here has a recollection of who may have done that.
Oh, okay, understood. Yes, sir, understood. And I just don't want to spend any unnecessary dollars in putting monies into an existing facility when in fact it could be just as a cost advantage or savings just to demolish that existing structure and building something right there or a few feet away from there it might just be best just to building a new facility, one sheet of ice, and putting something else up, while we, rather than investing any more of the taxpayer dollars into this dysfunctional facility.
And I think what I've heard from several of the members is just moving forward so that we could understand what that might look like from a cost standpoint.
Correct.
To be as expedited as possible to get to that point. I think that's kind of where we all are. If I'm missing something, please. Councilwoman Harrison, I just want to go around, just check. Is that where we are? We want to make sure we get this done as fast as possible. Allocation of funds for this fiscal year, we can always do an amendment. We'll have that money there available. We could always move it to CIP to do the repairs once we get those costs are and all. So it'll all be there. And we can do that as an amended budget going to the next fiscal year. But I think the real issue is that we make sure that we expeditiously get a good solid RFP out there, get it evaluated, and get a good solid fair assessment of what it would take structurally. I think that's where we are at this moment. Anybody disagreeing with that?
No.
We're all good. We can do that, Mr. Mayor, and we'll move forward with that. And if we need some more money, we'll put in a budget amendment and all that sort of thing, and if necessary in this fiscal year.
I was thinking we get this out just for the record.
Doesn't work, I think. And then, Nick, you said you can get out in February, right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right. Fine.
Thank you, Nick.
Great. Okay. The sooner the better. Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've got direction on how we're going to move on this, which was the second night. Any other discussion about it, or are we at that point now we can move forward?
Yes, I say I agree with what we're moving forward with, and I recommend that we continue updating the residents at each meeting as to where we are with what's going on with the ice rink.
Excellent point, Councilwoman. And I'll ask that the city staff be prepared to do that for each meeting, to give an update, to let them know, because I think everybody has expressed how important it is that we make sure the residents know that we're moving post haste to get this done. So I agree. All right. I think that is the last issue we have, since we are all in agreement, I think, on that for today.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone, and thank you for those in the community
Okay.
who joined us today.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick, staff, everybody, thank you for all you're doing. All of our council people, thank you all for taking your time, particularly on a Saturday, which looks like it's a pretty
You're
day.
welcome. Welcome.
Hey,
Take care.
everybody have a good day. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Bye.
You